You know, this episode makes me wonder, what if I took a different turn, a different path, where I never did a Doctor Who marathon? Would the world become this post-apocalyptic universe that we see in this episode? It'll probably look exactly the same. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today I'm excited to talk about this episode as we talk about the penultimate story of Series 4 of the revived series of Doctor Who, with Turn Left, written by Russell T Davies and is directed by Graham Harper. This is the Doctor Light episode of the series. Introduced in Series 2, we had a recurring episode, status quo shall we say, of an episode which doesn't feature the Doctor. This was done due to budget and timing, allowing for our casts to work on other episodes whilst the cast and crew work on a much cheaper, low budget, which will money go into other episodes. Oddly enough, Series 4 has two kind of episodes with Midnight, with very little appearances from Donna Noble and being a very Doctor-heavy story, which was a huge fan favourite. You can see my video on Midnight in my Doctor Who marathon if you're interested. But this one is the one where David Tennant basically gets the break now. Actually, these two episodes were filmed simultaneously, giving the time to do a story with the Doctor and story heavily focused on Donna Noble. So this is becoming a recurring element of the series, the Doctor Light episode. However, this is unusual for a Doctor Light story. In previous stories such as Love and Monster and Blink, it features on an entirely new character. But here, we're featured mostly with Donna Noble and her family, and it's only really the Doctor that has no bearing on the plot whatsoever. So that is kind of interesting. This story is also a play on the cliche of the what-if storylines. A great trope in science fiction is in which time gets altered, or somebody makes a deal or a bargain, or something happens which alters the course of time so slightly, but because of the slight effect, the ramifications become overbearing. And this story tackles, what if Donna Noble never met the Doctor? What if she took a different path in which she never helped the Doctor save Christmas all those years ago in the episode The Runaway Bride? Very interesting dilemma, and it's a very worn out, shall we say, type of storyline. Most famously, it was done in films like It's a Wonderful Life. I don't know if you count Groundhog Day. That's more like a repeating storyline. And like you know what I'm on about, anyway. You know exactly what I'm on about. The idea of the main character being taken out, or something changed slightly, which will affect time hugely. But this is something that's a bit different as we see ramifications for other episodes play out. So this story heavily relies on you and your connection with the series, because it does tackle, or at least a lot of the background noise, shall we say, that the story revolves around, is heavily plays into other story arcs, other episodes within series 3 and 4. So you do have to kind of have that knowledge before you get into this episode. Oh, and also, of course, Doomsday and the Army of Ghosts, which ties in with Rose Tyler, because Billie Piper actually returns as a prominent character here. She, of course, she left the series back in 2006 in the episode Doomsday, and now she has returned in a prominent role. She was earlier teased on in the series in episodes such as Partners in Crime and Midnight, where she appears on this screen. I can't remember if she's had any other appearances. I'm sure there's one in the Sontaran Stratagem I could be misremembering things there. But yeah, it's a very cliched little plot line, but this leads into one of, if not the, again, I'm repeating myself here because I've said the exact same thing with the previous episode with Midnight, in that it has led into one of the most popular stories in the series. It is considered by many as a 10 out of 10, an adventure beyond just so, like, it was so well written, so well executed, just everything is perfect about it. It is kind of really astonishing in that sense. I just realised Doctor Who Sarah Jane Adventures has already done this kind of episode with Whatever Happened with Sarah Jane. That kind of like the ramifications of that. So that's kind of strange. In fact, this story is actually connected with that, which we'll get onto in a little bit. So what happens in the story overall? In the pre-credit sequence, the Doctor has taken Donna Noble to this Chinese-inspired location. I don't know if they're in China or if they're in like an alien thing. I can't quite remember, but it seems to be fascinating, and the Doctor and Donna seem to be enjoying themselves extremely. And this woman, the fortune teller, basically bribes Donna in for her to get her fortune seen. But she starts asking questions about Donna's past, specifically about this amazing man, the Doctor, this amazing person that showed her so much about life outside of her, out of her bubble, shall we say. And she keeps targeting Donna to think of a point in time in which there was a simple decision, a decision which, if she took, which basically set her on her path. And Donna remembers just a average day, a completely normal day. In fact, she's forgotten about it, apart from the fact that this woman kind of has this ability to push these memories back at the forefront of Donna's head. And Donna remembers that she was at a crossroad arguing with her mother in the car, and she had two options: turn left, which she did, and she got in this, she stayed in her job, and she met Lance, and she met the Doctor, and you know what happened there. But if she turned right, if she went in a different path and got this new job that her mother would have wanted her, then she wouldn't have met the Doctor. And so somehow, with the ability of this entity that grabs onto Donna's back, a little reference to the Fires of Pompeii, which they mention there is something on her back for foreseeable future episodes. And so the timeline has been altered so that Donna has now gone right and will now exist in a universe where the Doctor never encountered Donna. And that is the premise of the episode. That is what we lead into. So, great way to start the episode, great way of kicking in and setting up the idea, the premise of the story. Now, I'm going to mention something which doesn't actually get mentioned until the very end of the episode, but I feel like A, it's not that big of a spoiler, and B, it is very important to the canonicity of Doctor Who. It turns out that the bug creature, the time bug, and this woman that has been altered Donna's past is part of the Trickster Brigade. And this is what I meant by it ties into the Sarah Jane Adventures. The Trickster Brigade are a group of entities that seem to be working for a particular individual who feeds off chaos, and how they do that is by altering the past. Basically, they latch on to a host, shall we say, and make deals with them to change their own past. They can change time, but they need the consent, an individual to make that decision, and they can then like feed off the damage, the danger, the chaos of that. This is important because the Trickster himself, the main entity of the Trickster Brigade, appears within the Sarah Jane adventures in the episode Whatever Happened to Sarah Jane, and later on in the series as well, which I haven't tackled about yet, and I haven't actually watched yet. But the Trickster Brigade also appears, the Brigade now, also appears in an episode of Series 4 of Torchwood, making the Trickster Brigade the only Doctor Who monster to appear in the Sarah Jane Adventures, Doctor Who, and Torchwood, for those of you who don't know. So that is some pretty heavy continuity stuff right here. And I love how it's... the Trickster Brigade are this like sinister... We don't really know much about them, and I like that. They have this awe about them, that they, and they have a very, very simple premise. They just take people and change a little bit of their past, altering events at the present time to catastrophe levels. It's such a simple premise, but from the episodes that we've been tackling with them, they're so well handled. And so we essentially just meet Donna without the Doctor. We see events from her point of view. We see her at Christmas enjoying drinks with her friends, where suddenly the star ship from the episode The Runaway Bride kicks in and starts killing everybody, but then gets destroyed by the military. However, because Donna wasn't there to stop the Doctor from drowning the building that he was in with Rapnos, the Doctor did not survive. It doesn't seem like he had the ability to regenerate at this point, and so the Doctor was killed. And Donna is witnessing this, and she is kind of in this kind of muddled state. Now this, just a little like side note here, it's not a criticism per se. In fact, I would personally consider it a strength. But the Donna here is a lot more mature than how we originally met her during the time of The Runaway Bride. So, a bit of a retcon in terms of her character, being much more in line with her now, as we know her now in the series. But personally, as somebody who didn't like her in The Runaway Bride, I'm kind of glad that they did that. But her friend seems to keep looking at her back, and Donna gets really annoyed by this. It's like, there's a ship out there killing millions of people in London, and all you can look at is my back. And her friend seems to be petrified with it. This would become a recurring theme in the episode. And it's also around here that we get our first appearance of Rose Tyler, and she just kind of runs into the scene, and she turns to Donna. It's like, who are you? And she looks at her back, seemingly like trying to distract Donna or something, as Donna keeps asking her, it's like, why are you looking at my back? It's like, no. So what are you doing? What are you doing later on? Any plans or anything? Trying to change the subject, which Donna gets really fed up with at the moment. And this is a story, the way I do these videos will not just do it justice. Let's be honest, the story is mainly just, most of the story is just Donna's point of view from these episode events. We have references to Smith and Jones, we have references to other episodes. I can't remember what other ones from series 3 there are. I don't think there were any other series apart from Smith and Jones, where the hospital gets vanished and it comes back and everybody is dead. Everyone has died except for one survivor. And it turns out there is a machine, like in Smith and Jones, where the machine is about to explode, but somebody was there to save it. Sadly, however, due to the oxygen starvation, the crew, the small crew of people, were killed. They died. These people were Sarah Jane, Luke, Clyde, and Maria. They were now in the area of Smith and Jones, and they were killed for their interactions within that episode, because not only do they not have Time Lord lungs, but also because there's 3 extra people, it means that the oxygen went quicker than it usually did, killing everybody in the hospital. Apart from one survivor, which is the guy who actually... There's actually a lot of cameos, actually, from characters that have appeared throughout the series. And I love that. I love the little details. We get the soldier from the Sontaran experiment and the Poisonous Sky, in which that soldier, the soldier that gets cloned, he makes a cameo as one of the soldiers who finds the Doctor's body. We have that Doctor character. There's just so many little details here and there that's referencing episodes, and the world just starts becoming a less likable place. In fact, it starts off as just these horrible things have happening around London, and all the borders have started closing. But they're to the side for the moment. They're nothing really to concern with Donna. It's horrible and it's terrible, but it's not taking that much effect. I mean, Donna does lose her job because of the borders being pushed up, because there's now nobody to protect the borders of the UK, and so there's that. But however, things start to become extremely serious, and this is where the story becomes a massive focal shift, in which basically they relive the events of Voyage of the Damned, the silly one with the Titanic. And Donna meets Rose Tyler at one point, and Rose Tyler basically tells her to get out of London for Christmas. Just enjoy your life. And so Donna takes her family to this holiday place, and outside of London, where the events of Voyage of the Damned take place. However, now there's no Doctor, which means at the end of that episode, if you remember correctly, the starship Titanic is about to crash onto the Earth, but the Doctor saves the day. But the Doctor's not here, and it crashes, destroying and killing thousands upon thousands of people in London, making Donna, her grandfather, and mother refugees in the UK. And she gets moved up to Leeds, and there's a lot of similarities here to Jewish prejudice just before World War III, with the Nazi occupation of Germany, with people being shoved into houses, shall we say, and at the start they meet this Italian family, and I love the connection, the group of people at the moment. They're so nice and calm to them, but at first they're kind of in culture shock. It's like, now we're gonna have to live like this. We used to have a house, we used to have a lovely place to ourselves and enjoy all of these freedoms and stuff, but now we're living in a kitchen with a massive group of family. How does that work with the bathrooms and stuff? But the Italian family are really generous towards them, and at first Donna and Donna's mother aren't too happy about this, and they're keen, and there's a lot of poverty imagery here. Graham Harper's directing, man. He really, really knows what he's doing here, and the realism in this story just really hits home and hard. There's even some really great bits of dialogue in here from Russell T Davies, which plays into what he loves, which I'll get onto in a bit. But there's a scene here in which they start enjoying themselves. And I love the bit where Donna starts shouting at the Italian family for singing and doing these sea shanties. But then it turns out it was really Wilfred that basically kicked it off. And then we just cut into a scene where all the family are just, including Donna and her mother, just start singing Bohemian Rhapsody. And it's just so charming and calm and likeable for the moment. And there's this moment where you just kind of giggle to yourself that even though the world is at the moment just terrible in terms of the narrative, these people do get this moment of enjoyment, of freedom. And then they hear gunshots outside, and the happiness kind of stops. And this is when it turns out the events of the Sontaran stratagem and Poisonous Sky take place, where the Atma system is leaking out the poisonous gas into the sky, and unit soldiers, regular soldiers, try and stop it, but nothing seems to happen. We also get a scene in which a soldier threatens Donna with a gun for her to turn her back, and Donna kind of clicks together, right, there is something really serious about this thing on my back, and she has another encounter with Rose Tyler, and she starts calming down. Now, there's this whole thing in this episode where Rose will not tell Donna her name, or any other character in this universe her name, and she explains it's like temporal flux, and one wrong word can affect the timelines or something like that. I'm not quite sure how that even works in the canonicity of Doctor Who. I mean, sure, timelines and split up in fact, and you got to be careful what you say and do, but telling her your name, I don't see why that's a big problem. And B, it's clearly that was done to set up the cliffhanger for the episode, which I like to state is awesome, but the fact that it's the reason why we got there is because, I can't tell you my name, it's a mystery. It's Rose Tyler. Why are you doing this? But there's also a great mention on how the Sontaran stratagem at this point gets stopped. However, I just realised I've been calling it the Sontaran experiment, but it's actually the Sontaran stratagem. I do apologise for that. It does get stopped in this timeline again. However, this time it is done by Torchwood, by Jack, by Gwen, and by Yanto. However, Yanto and Gwen were killed, destroying the Sontaran ship, and Jack has been teleported away to the Sontaran home planet of Sontar, leaving Earth completely defenseless at this point. And so Donna basically learns that there's this timeline about her and the Doctor and stuff, and Donna originally does not believe her. It's like, you stay away from me, I'm not this important person, I won't listen to you. And Rose is just like, yes you will in 3 weeks, because the stars are going to go out. That's why I need the Doctor, I need him, and I need you. There's something about you in particular. I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know what's happening with you, but something with you. You are very important to this. Even though you think you're just this average person, you're this average individual, you are amazing, Donna. You are special. If it wasn't for you turning in this wrong decision and thing, then the whole world would have been fixed. But it all revolves around you. And Donna's just like, no, it does not. I'm just an average person. There's nothing special about me. Hearing Donna, hearing those words, being the most relatable companion of the series, hits right there, man. Hits right there. But basically, Rose is just like, right, something is going to happen which will put you on my side. And I'm sorry, but it means you're going to have to die. And then there's this ominous presence. Now, this story, again, reminds me a lot of Whatever Happens to Sarah Jane, with Andrea Yates in that episode, basically being in the same situation with Donna, and that time is altered around her, and to fix it, she learns that she has to die. Only here, Donna's a character that we have followed throughout the series, and we have fallen in love with, unlike Andrea Yates, who is, despite being a likeable character, is just for that one episode. So that plays a lot, and I think that makes this story a lot more impactful. Not to say that Whatever Happens to Sarah Jane is bad. In fact, that episode's great. Go watch it. But here, it really just helps the impact. We then cut into one of the scenes which I was talking about, which plays into Russell T Davis's big interest, and that is political messaging in his Doctor Who stories. The Italian family have seemed to be taken away by the military, and he's being so this cheerful. He's telling Donna not to worry, you'll be fine. This is the new law, Britain for the British people. They're going to make these labour camps for us so we can go and work and have fun somewhere else. We're going to enjoy ourselves somewhere else. And Donna doesn't seem to see what's happening. She just seems to like enjoy the situation and well, not enjoy the situation per se. She's still kind of, but she doesn't realise the gravity of the situation. But Wilfred, who has been around through World War II and is a veteran, a soldier veteran, can see what's happening. And the Bernard Crimmins is just somebody, a living actor at the moment, who we just do not deserve. He's such a phenomenal, just a phenomenal portrayal of a character. His face just breaks down into tears. And so this Italian family get onto this military SUV, and Wilfred just goes, work camps. That's what they called them the last time. It's happening again. And Donna kind of slowly clicks, wait, what? And she's just screaming in the road, where are they taking you? Where are they taking you? And that is just such an emotional gut punch. It's so emotionally effective, and you really feel, because you like these characters, I wouldn't say fallen in love, but you do like these characters enough. But, well, the Italian father anyway, who is the surrogate for the Italian family, and the fact that we've seen how characters just enjoy their company, and presumably some horrible things are going to happen to them to try and keep Britain and conservative and all that, and it's just, it shifts this world to a very dark environment. And what I absolutely love is the scene straight after. The scene, that scene is awesome, and everybody talks about how like amazing and how well written and how topical that scene is. I love the scene after as well. We cut into a scene in which Donna is just going back into the house now, freedom because now they go in the house to themselves. This fate, Donna's mother, Sylvia, she is just, her face is completely emotionless. Doesn't even move. She doesn't even blink. She's just kind of like a face close up on her face as Donna's just blurred in the background. And she's just like staring slightly at the camera a bit and says absolutely nothing. The camera just holds there as Donna's trying to like cheer her up in the background. And there's a bit in which like Donna's just like, I guess you were right then, I guess I was a disappointment. And Donna's mother's just like, yeah. This entire world has just depressed her. There's this family that originally she started hating, but now she had just fallen in love with, and they start having that moment with they sing Bohemian Rhapsody and they start enjoying themselves, and now the family's been taken away from them. And that probably suffering from what people used to suffer by Nazi occupation back during the 1930s. And that's just, man, that is just powerful stuff and just absolutely like gut-wrenching. But anyway, the Wilfred starts looking up into the sky, and we start noticing that the stars are disappearing. All this blackness, all of this empty voidness is happening. Something is turning off the stars, and Donna realizes that she has to do what she needs to do. This world is about to end. Something is stopping this universe from continuing on, from existing, and she needs to team up with this mysterious character, who of course we know as Rose Tyler, and it's something which would kill her, apparently. And so she teams up with Rose, and they get reunited with Unit. They show her the thing on her back. Rose Tyler explains that this thing is giving off some temporal energies, which is altering reality and time around Donna. And then Donna kind of has this freak out. I love this. I love this scene from Donna. I'm not quite sure how to feel about the Rose Tyler aspect. Of course, this ties into the later episodes in the series, but in terms of what it means in this story here, I'm not quite sure how to feel about this. Basically, Donna's just like, okay, so it's not me who's important. I am this just useless regular Joe. It's the thing on my back. It's using me as a host. This is the important thing. And I really like that. Donna still doesn't see that, she's this important individual. It's the thing on the back, the time bug, the trickster brigade. But Rose tries to comfort her by saying that no, it's not just the creatures. There's something about you as well. Time and is flux around you, and it's been since since all your life, since you were born. Basically implying that there's this destiny, this inbuilt destiny surrounding Donna. Of course, this ties into the later episodes in the series, and we'll talk more about that and that. But the implication here is that don't worry, Donna. You are special in this universe-breaking way. Not that Donna's just this amazing and lovable person, and her charisma and her charm is what people like about her. No, it's this temporal flux thing. So I'm not quite sure about to feel about that. But again, it's only a small little scene, and it could just be sorry about that. It could just be Rose just comforting Donna at this moment in time, because she's absolutely petrified. We get a really great scene in which Donna, this version of Donna, sees the TARDIS for the first time, and Rose is basically explaining herself here. So let's talk about Rose actually for a moment, because as some of you might have remembered, I am not a huge fan of Rose. Rose is a character I've never particularly been keen on. I've just remembered another great example of this what if storyline in Father's Day, where Rose saves her father. So that's just another clash of storylines there. And what do I feel about her in this story, you're probably wondering. I don't mind her in this one. Of course, the whole idea of her not saying her name is kind of frustrating as a viewing audience, because it's so clearly they've done this to just set up the cliffhanger. But except for that, Rose is actually being very kind to Donna at this moment. Maybe just to use her to get to the Doctor. True, but I do like their relationship here, and I love how mature Billie Piper has now played Rose Tyler. She's clearly matured a little bit from her appearance, her last time we've seen her. And unlike her interaction with Sarah Jane in the episode School Reunion, with her and Donna, there is this kind of understanding between the two women, and I do really enjoy that. I also do like how Rose Tyler is mainly just a plot convenience. She doesn't have that much to do. It's mainly focusing on Donna's character, and Rose Tyler basically comes up, says that me and Unit have come up with this plan. Basically, the universe has revolved around you due to this one moment in time where the times were in flux because you went the wrong way. We're going to try and take you back in time to that moment, and you are going to try and do everything you can to stop yourself from turning right. You are going to force yourself to turn left. And how does Rose know all this? We don't know. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff probably, but anyway. But I love the scene just before she gets teleported using this mirror technology. There's this moment in which Donna's just smiling, she's cheering, she's just like, now I know what you're on about when you said earlier that I'm going to die. Yes, in a way I'm going to die, but you meant really the universe, this existence, and when I've done my mission, the universe will be reset and restarted and everything will be fine and better and I will live. Isn't that right? And I love that moment in which you can clearly see Rose's face. She's kind of like smiling, but she's really uncomfortable at this moment. And Donna can see that, and she starts realising. And the last thing Donna hears before travelling to the past is, "I'm sorry." And she gets transported back to just before the runaway bride. That moment, 4 minutes, I believe, 4 minutes before she has to turn, make that decision. And Donna starts running. She starts panting to try and get to her. Her plan is to originally just get to herself and just argue with herself to turn left. I love that plan. However, she realises that she's not going to get there in time because Unit gave her this watch. And then she realises what Rose meant, what Rose's plan was. And she steps in front of a van and gets ran over. This builds up traffic on the right side of the road, stopping Donna from making the decision to go right, and makes her turn left, rewriting history back to its original timeline. And with this now dying, deceased Donna, Rose appears to her and says, "I need you to warn the doctor, but first I need you to give him a message. Just tell him these 2 words." And she whispers something in his ear. And then we cut back into the present day, in which Donna is talking to that medium, and it seems that the bug has fallen off Donna's back, and it's shriveling up, and the fortune teller is just like, "You are too powerful. Who are you? What are you?" And she runs off, and the doctor then gets reunited with her in this lovely scene where they hug each other, and they basically then discuss the events of the episode where this thing got in her back and rewrote history, this alternate timeline, and the doctor's just like trying to explain to her what happens. This is where the Trickster Brigade mention comes in, and there's a bit where Dawn is just like, "I don't know why it affected me. I'm nothing special." And then the doctor's just like, "Oh, you're every ounce of importance." And then Donna remembers, "Wait a minute, that woman said that to me." She doesn't exist anymore, Donna, don't worry about it. But she said the stars are going out. Again, it doesn't matter, it happened in another universe. But she said it's happening to every universe, even here, even in this world. And the doctor is like, kind of interested in this. He's like, "Who is she? What was her name?" Donna's like, I don't know, but she was blonde. "Donna, tell me, what is her name?" "Doctor, she gave me a message. She told me to tell you these 2 words. "What was it, Donna? What was those 2 words?" "Bad wolf." And then all of a sudden, all strange creatures start blasting through the speakers as the doctor pulls his face of just utter amazement but utter shock as he starts running out of the hut that they're in, and he looks around and all of the words have been translated, but they all say the same thing: "Bad wolf, bad wolf, bad wolf." There's even a bit where he gets to the TARDIS, and somehow, I don't know the logistics of this, how this works in terms of the canon, but I absolutely love just how epic it feels when we have "Bad Wolf" written on the TARDIS, on the sign, and they look up where the police telephone box, it says "Bad Wolf, Bad Wolf, Bad Wolf." Does that mean that somewhere police telephone call box translates to bad wolf, wolf? Question mark? Who knows? And they go inside, and the cloister bell is ringing, and the TARDIS is all red, and Donna asks, "What does this mean?" And the doctor calls out, "It means the end of everything, or the end of the universe," or something like that. And that's this episode ending, leading into the next story, the grand finale of Series 4. But we're not talking about that, we're talking about Turn Left, and that's Turn Left. Overall, it is just such an engaging, such an impactful, such a enjoyable story, and it really tackles its concepts and its ideas extraordinarily well. It takes itself extremely seriously. Donna is such a likeable protagonist, and we root for her every moment, and how all of this, just this horrible stuff is just happening around. Basically, the story's already lost at the first half of the episode. It's just basically moving to one place and another and seeing this world, how this world affects people, where most people just can't do anything about it. Sort of just like how politics in the real world are. It's just phenomenal storytelling. Russell T Davies outdone himself here, and the fact that this episode appears literally back to midnight is something astonishing. And this is a story I also highly recommend. It's one of the best stories ever written for the series. It's not one of my personal favourites, but it is pretty high up there in terms of every Doctor Who episode. It's all there. I do state, however, that it's not like, I do recommend it, but I don't recommend it being your first story. A lot of it ties into your acknowledgement of episodes prior, and it does lead into the two-parter heavily tying into that. So this story is mainly a mountain, the top tip of a mountain where things start to spiral out from in terms of canonicity. But that aside, it's well written, well executed, some really powerful scenes, well paced, well executed, very serious in tone. Just overall, a fantastically great episode. Can't floor it. Can't. Maybe some nitpicks here and there when it comes to Rose Tyler's character, specifically the fact that she just won't tell her name. But again, that's so minor in terms of what the episode is trying to say that it's easily just forgettable. I just had to mention because, this is a vlog series, me talking about my opinions on it, so it is a nitpick. But yeah, go watch it. 10 out of 10. Another 10 out of this. We've had 2 10 and 10s back to back. This was easily the golden age of Doctor Who in the revived series by far. So anyway, that's Turn Left. So join me next time where the Doctor, Donna, Rose, Martha, Jack, Gwen, Yanto, Sarah Jane and Luke all team up to fight the greatest villains in the Doctor Who canon as the entire planet of Earth suddenly disappears. And there's a returning entity, a returning foe that wants to get its revenge on the Doctor as the prophecy must be fulfilled. So join me next time for The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!